Well, there are a couple of things that are in heavy rotation at our house these days. Reading a Mandalorian book, that's a Star Wars thing, and listening to Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. So these are not things that I'm naturally drawn to, but because my kids like them, I guess I do too. You probably have examples as well. Maybe it is this show.
This is the worst day of all my life.
Bluey, you'll have to sit in the front seat.
What? The front seat? Really? Is that allowed?
Queensland road rules say that if all the seats are taken, a child older than 4 can sit in the front seat. Yep, it's allowed. Come on, get in.
This is the best day of all my life.
Well, glad someone's having fun.
That is the TV show Bluey. It has won over the hearts of many, many kids, but let's be honest, the adults like it just as much, if not more. And so today we're asking, what are you into because of your kids? And how does having that shared interest shape your relationship? We have a panel of parents ready to talk about Bluey and so much more, and a dad and daughter Swiftie. Well, you can call us now and tell us what you're into because of your kids. 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Well, there are a lot of Saskies who are on Team Bluey, including our first two guests. Albert Jamie is a Saskatoon dad. He has a 3-year-old daughter, and today he's joining us in our Regina studio. Albert, welcome to Blue Sky.
Hey, Alicia, how's it going?
Pretty well. And then we've got Megan Trenholm, who's a Regina mother of 2 girls, ages 5 and 8, also in our Regina studio. Megan, hello.
Hello, I'm here for real life.
You are, and it's great to have you here. That clip off the top there of that Bluey, it just like, I don't know, there's like a thing when that theme song comes on. I know that my kids love it, but some people may not have heard of the TV show Bluey. Some people haven't seen it. So Megan, how would you describe Bluey to someone who has never seen the show before?
I think that, Bluey is, a short cartoon about dogs and, it's 2 little girls having the times of their lives. And we get to see how the family interacts and how the family dynamic changes over time.
Is it fair to call the show pretty deep for a kid's show?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. I was visiting a friend who does not have children, and she would be talking about things in her life, and I'd say, there's a Bluey episode about this. You want to talk about making friends as an adult? There's a Bluey episode for it. So it's one of those things that there's a Bluey episode for every possible situation.
So how did your family first start watching it, Megan?
Well, we were, in the depths of, my 8-year-old at the time being much younger, and we were flipping through Disney Plus trying to find literally anything that she would hold her attention for more than 45 seconds that didn't also, drive us as parents nuts. That, all of a sudden we landed on Bluey, and it's been that ever since.
So what do you like about the show? Why did it not drive you nuts the way other kids' TV shows can?
Oh, the music, I think, was the first thing that we really connected with. That, from the first episode, there's points that, you start moving your shoulders and you can't not move and engage with it in that way. And from there, topically or thematically, there was just so many things that, especially as a mom of a young kid, there was things that you just felt really acknowledged and really seen in a way that, Lil, my oldest, would be, just watching me like, oh, why are there planets? And I am just weeping. Oh my God, she is her everything and she will be there all the time. And, it just, there's ways to connect on so many levels. And I think that's how we, continue watching now.
So, Albert, what's your story? What about you? How did you first get into Bluey?
Yeah, my daughter was probably about 1.5 when my sister, who has a 12-year-old, she was just forcing it on me, saying, you got to watch this show. And I think the appeal was trying to appeal to me as an adult and saying, It's amazing. It's super funny. You're going to find it. I think she was always worried that I'm going to be checked out because I think, when you have a 1.5-year-old, you have the typical shows, the Coco Melons and certain things are just like moving kind of squishy balls across the screen. And it's really unentertaining for an adult. And so my sister was like, no, trust me, you're going to really, really like it. It's funny. It's nuanced. And I was like, okay. And then I think as soon as she got to a certain age, my wife's really concerned about like refresh rate or frame rates and just making sure that things aren't too bright. So then, we started off with Peppa Pig, started off with Puff and Rock and little kind of soft shows like that. And then I think getting to maybe about 2.5, she started watching Bluey. And it kind of just grew from there. And I think it has a lot of things that are great for kids. But again, I think parents are also really into it. And I'm just really interested in like the research that they did. Are they trying to market this to parents because they have the control of the remote? Or is this actually for kids? But
and what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. And I just know that there's a lot of research that goes into children's programs. There's stories about like Blue's Clues and stuff like that, and like how much testing they do. And I'm just wondering, very similar to like the fishing world, like that the lures aren't there to attract the fish; it's there to attract the fishermen. And I wonder if the shows are like that, or are they actually just trying to attract adults? But it doesn't matter because it holds the attention. And then when you listen to the message and the morality of these messages, you're kind of like, oh no, this like I'm totally cool with her listening to this sort of stuff. It's very real. It's really true to life, and it's something that like I feel like she could be watching till she's 11, 12. So.
Yeah.
Or 40.
Do you have like you? Yeah. Do you have an example of an episode that's maybe really stuck with you, Albert?
Just watching like Bandit, and obviously you kind of position yourself as like the character. So you're looking at the dad, and I'm thinking, that's so me. Like that one obstacle course race. I feel like I just keep watching it and just knowing that I don't know why I'm like overly competitive with my child sometimes, and unconsciously as well. And just watching him like yank Bluey back at the very last minute, which you would never think that would happen in a children's show. I'm that guy. Sometimes if she's chasing me and I have like a flag in my pants and she's trying to chase to get it out, I'm like, oh, wow, I've around for like 5 minutes and she hasn't caught it yet. I think you kind of realize, oh, you know what, you have to do that or else she's going to grow up like resenting me for doing that. So now I'm like realizing, you got to push her, compete with her a bit, but at the same time let her win sometimes. So
yeah. So it's helped you kind of contemplate your role as a parent, Albert.
Oh, it's helped me contemplate a lot of things and make me go down some deep, dark holes of my just parenting. And it's really awesome to watch like this nucleus family just go through regular life. And I really, really appreciate just the sort of message. There's nothing really like it on TV. Like there is Peppa Pig. There's just not many shows with a complete family doing things, tackling things. Coco Melon kind of has it, but it doesn't really have a story. But you watch like Puff and Rock, you watch Gabby's Dollhouse. There's no like parental involvement. So watching this and just having messages that are also geared to teaching us how to parent is kind of a really awesome nod to the writers to be able to kind of tackle those topics.
Yeah, just like those real life things, like even the clip that we played off the top and how the mom's Googling whether or not it's safe or illegal to put the kid in the front seat. It's just those everyday things that we're sorting out as parents. And Megan, I think you said that it helps you feel seen as a parent. And so do you want to elaborate and maybe build on some of what we heard from Albert there? Is it helping you as a parent?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think of like the episode Sheepdog, where the episode starts with Chili, the mom, just like really tapped out. Like she is over it. Bluey is playing a recorder very loudly. And Bandit, the dad, comes home and Chili just immediately says, I need 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, God, yeah. And so that has also like given us a shorthand in our house of when I am really tapped out and I know that I'm not going to be a good parent for the next while. I'm going to do things that are detrimental. I just like make eye contact with my partner and I say, I just need 20 minutes. And as soon as my kids hear that, they're like, oh, yes, Mom is not mad at us. She just needs 20 minutes.
Does she go into the bathroom? Isn't there one where the mom has to go into the bathroom for a bit and have a moment? Is that the same one that you're talking about, or is that a different episode? 'Cause that was in the background one day when I was cooking, and I was kind of laughing at that idea of like hiding out where the kids can't find you and just taking a moment for yourself. And sometimes that's in the bathroom.
And yeah, of course. And it's something that also is recurring. Like, it's not like there's just one bad day. It's like, oh, yeah, this is an ongoing thing. Like, you know, this is something that we continue to have to deal with as we're parenting. And yeah, having those breaks and having someone be able to explain, like, your mom's not mad at you. She just needs time in the same way that you also need time sometimes. It just, you know, yeah, it gives us a shorthand to be able to deal with it a little bit nicer.
Mm-hmm. Now, part of the reason why we're talking about Bluey is because there was all this buzz about the season finale, and so a lot of like culture critics were talking about Bluey, and that it's just really been part of the conversation lately. And we're not going to share spoilers, and we're not going to talk about whether or not there's more coming. That's not for today. But it did spark this conversation of what are you into because of your kids. And so if it's Bluey or if it's something else, we would love to hear from you today. 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Albert, you talked about whether or not the show creators are how much they're thinking about who this is for and how much they're catering to parents. There was a conversation on the CBC show Commotion about this, and they did talk about Bluey versus Cocomelons. Let's take a listen to what was said.
So I mentioned Cocomelon earlier. It is the number one show, Nielsen rated, for kids under 11. 16 billion minutes viewed of this show. But Bluey comes in second with 12 billion minutes viewed. And, you know, if you don't know anything about Cocomelon, it's basically like an AI algorithm-based show. But on the surface, they're both about families. They're both about family life. I'm curious if you think... you know, given the competition, if we're going to end up seeing, you know, more shows like Bluey, if the good can overcome the evil, if I may call Cocomelon evil, or do you think, you know, it's just an unstoppable beast, this show that kids can't turn away from?
It is so incredibly heartening to me that Bluey is as popular as it is. Like, it is a beacon of why it is important to, if you don't mind me like turning it in this direction, pay writers and like value the creative side of making any kind of TV show or movie. And that when you do that, it can work financially for the creative side and for the corporate side. Like, that there is a significant amount of like the rising tide lifts all boats when that system works. But the reality is that it is faster and cheaper and sort of easier to make a Cocomelon than it is to make a Bluey, and that you're probably going to have to take a chance on 20 Blueys before you find the one that hits. And it's very easy and fast to churn out 20 Cocomelons and have them mostly work for a pretty low price. So, you know, we are at this moment throughout all kinds of creative screen endeavors where it does feel like there's this important reckoning as far as what we're going to value and how people are going to be compensated for their work. But my hope is that the existence of a show like Bluey can be this beacon for demonstrating how much better it is for everyone when that creative side is emphasized. And I very much hope that all executives sit down with a Cocomelon and a Bluey and think about which one they'd rather watch with their kids.
Oh my God, yes.
So that's some of the conversation from Commotion. You can call us if you have thoughts on what you just heard there, 1-800-716-2221, or email bluesky@cbc.ca. It may make you think of other shows that you've loved as an adult, even though it was technically meant for kids. We've got a couple of parents with us today, Albert Jamie and Megan Trenholm, and we've got a few other people standing by to talk about stuff that they're into because of their kids. But Albert, listening to that bit there comparing Cocomelon and Bluey, what are your thoughts? You know, is it smart to produce something that parents will like too?
Yeah, I didn't know that this is going to go down the AI route, so this is going to be a hot take.
Tell me more.
What happens if all of a sudden we realize the last few episodes of Bluey were written by AI? It's going to happen. that's just my hot take. Again, we can debate this around the table here, but there's a chance, like, it's evolving so fast that this sort of soft, nuanced sort of television show that we think that is just from the creator's hands, there's going to be a time, like, this is 2024. What's AI going to be in 2028 or 2026? There's going to be a chance that Bluey will be soft and very emotionally nuanced, I guess, for the public. And other shows will come in. And it's just that's how the system works. It learns what people likes and it creates things that are similar. And it'll be and again, we're watching like videos and photos and hyperrealism happen at breakneck speed. And I think that from a creator standpoint, there is going to be a chance, not to be all doomsday with the AI stuff, but I do think that we're going to start realizing that there is this really kind of artificial intelligence that can kind of recreate this sort of creative mind, and I just want
like a formula almost that creators will be able to follow. Like your AI is able to tap into what it is we want. Is that kind of what you're getting?
Yeah,
at?
maybe. But it's funny because I was thinking about that. There is a way to just boil down like what that is just as a skeleton, and I was just thinking about like Beyonce's Texas Hold'em song. To get back into pop culture, that song is very interesting because I'm like, this song has to be somehow broken down by AI because it has all these sort of cliche things in every country song. The woos, the hays, these sort of kind of scales and arpeggios that are very and they just like slammed them into one track and created this thing. And I'm like, it's formulaic, but at the same time, this is what people like. And you don't even need really AI to do that. CoComelon, yes, it is something that you can kind of just pump out. You could make a CoComelon TV show right now with just the rudimentary sort of GPTs and generative stuff that's out there right now. Not a problem. And it's just they have the brand recognition, and that's why they're driving it. But I do think that eventually we are going to get to a point where you're going to get this sort of soft, really emotional, like high EQ sort of television show that's all created. I mean, I have to be in that world all the time, and I'm just constantly amazed. And everybody who's an expert in AI still says, I don't even know what's going to happen in a year.
So this is fascinating to me, Albert, because we're talking about shows for kids. And I think the conversation around how much TV should your kid watch is something that's just been with us like forever, right? And so how do you think you'll continue to navigate that as a parent, no matter what the content is? Are you having conversations already about what your child's watching, how much of it they're watching? And of course, that's going to shift over time as technology continues to influence what we're seeing.
For sure. We always try to have, not hard and fast rules, but we try to minimize, screen time just like most parents. But I mean, like real life takes over, and there's that episode of Bluey's parents, and it's like I think it's visible that they're hungover from the night before, and there's moments like that in just life where you're just like, okay, I'm just so tired. Instead of having a moment in the bathroom, we'll just give her the iPad, which is like an instant babysitter. We don't want that, obviously. And I just don't know what the ramifications are, giving her an hour or two a day of doing that. But we try to minimize it. My big tip is like, just go outside.
I have another question for you, Albert, because you are able to talk about pop culture, like you're just tapped in, right? And so do you want your kids to be able to talk about the TV shows that they grew up with? Like what's that balance for you as someone who I know that you've always been someone who's either watched TV and you know what's coming out. And so, do you want your kids to have that kind of knowledge to take all that kind of stuff in too?
I don't know. It's hard to compare, me growing up in the 80s watching like Wonder Years and Golden Girls. There's just kind of this monoculture of like everybody was talking about this one thing. Now, just the proliferation of all the content, it's just like very different the way that it's consumed. And I'm very interested in how people are going to try to kind of graduate into the real world with all like splintered knowledge. So then, you could be very into something specific and so popular. Like I was just thinking about that Noah Kahan guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's so massive, and I just probably heard of him like 2 weeks ago. So as you said that I'm actually plugged in, I would like my office and colleagues would be like, he's the most out of touch person they know. But at the same time, I feel like I'm on the periphery just kind of watching things, and I like kind of studying like phenomenons like that Noah Kahan who just came out of nowhere seemingly, and just is now the biggest act, which I still think is like slightly overrated for how big
perhaps
it is.
This is why we need our kids to keep us tapped into some of these things. Megan, I want to put that that screen question to you too, because I'm talking a bit like I know Bluey, but at the same time, I'm not really sitting and watching with my kids while they watch Bluey. I am making supper, and so how are you navigating that whole thing, right? Of wanting your kids to sit back and enjoy some TV, but also knowing that it's something that comes with some challenges.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Ongoing conversations is the way that we are dealing with it. We try to, like, my kids are a little bit older than Albert's kids.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's something caught in my throat. Just thinking about Bluey, so I'm just real emotional. No, so now our questions are about, like, the quality of what it is. And I think one of the things that keeps us trying to come back to Bluey is that it is more considered, and it's not just some person on YouTube that is just like producing weird stuff that is promoting bullying and like whatever weirdness, which is what we dealt with at one point.
Mm-hmm. I'm in that phase. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so I'm also comparing it to my childhood. And Mom, I'm so sorry if you're listening right now, but I do feel like to a point I was raised by TV, and just looking back at, we do try to get our kids to watch what we watched when we were young, and the quality is so much better now. Like even the Coco Melons, the Gabby's Dollhouse, the quality is just so much better than like the Ninja Turtles, which is what we watched. Okay, so we've had a recent like resurgence of Ninja Turtles with the new movie.
I loved the new movie.
It's so good. We watch it all the time. But because of that, we watch like the little girl versions is what we call them, because it's what we watched as little girls. My husband is a little girl by default.
Yeah.
So when we watch the little girl versions of all those things, it's like, oh, you liked this? Mom, why? Why would you watch this? It's like, well, I also really liked Street Sense. Like, there's this other stuff.
Ooh, deep cut. I like that.
Street Sense is something that's coming back now.
Fit for the pit.
See, because we continue to try to influence our kids, which is kind of the fun of this conversation, right? We're trying to flip it, and it's like, what are you into because of your kids? And I am absolutely still trying to introduce them to the stuff that I like. We've got more to talk about, you two, so don't go anywhere. I'm speaking today with two parents, Albert Jamie and Megan Trenholm, and we're hoping you'll share with us the things that you got into because of your kids. 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Let's just take a second, though, to check in with the CBC's David Shield, who joins us right now. David, what's making news today?
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just finished up a speech at Saskatoon's Wanuskewin Heritage Park. He talked about this year's federal budget, including new money for Indigenous-owned businesses and language programs. He also talked about a Centre of Excellence for Healthcare being set up at the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technologies. Workers at Luther Care Group Homes are threatening job action. The workers want to have guaranteed consecutive 2-day-long breaks from work. The union says if progress isn't made by end of day tomorrow, workers will withdraw transportation services. And Premier Scott Moe was on hand to announce the province is buying 5 new air tankers used to fight fires across the province. The current fleet of land-based air tankers are getting old and need to be replaced. The first of the 4 tankers are set to arrive in the province in the late summer of next year. And I'll have a full newscast for you coming up at 1 o'clock.
David, thank you. Before you go, are you into anything because of your kids? What are they getting you into these days?
I mean, boy, video games, I think to a certain degree. I mean, I really didn't play video games at all anymore, but now my kids are getting back into it, including one super old game. My 10-year-old's playing Final Fantasy VII, which is now probably about like 30 years old, but he's really into it. It's kind of strange. That and the 10-year-old really likes Journey and Toto and like weird 80s bands, and we took them to SaskTel Center to watch Journey and Toto. my 10-year-old, my 13-year-old, which was a little weird. And let me tell you, there weren't very many kids their age at SaskTel Center that night.
So is that because of your influence, or did they find it on their own on Spotify?
You know, so we've got. I think it all started with getting Sirius XM like satellite radio for a couple of months, and they just listened to it and they liked it, and they just kept on listening to it. So
yeah. And your kids can listen to literally anything now. You don't have to just go through your parents' CD collection to find music. You can they just grab my phone. They create their own playlists now.
Yep.
Oh, David, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's David Shield. I'm Leisha Gravinsky. You're listening to Blue Sky here on CBC Radio 1. We do have a caller on the line who wants to share what his kids are getting him into these days. So, Renee, hello to you. Welcome to Blue Sky.
Hey.
Hey, so what are you into because of your kids?
Do you remember talking to me last week, the yodeler?
Oh, my gosh. Yes, of course I do.
My gosh. So, Leisha Gravinsky, I was driving down the street listening to this, and I said, geez, I got to phone in because you know I'm a yodeler. I'm into old music. When my kids were small, I have a son and a daughter, and they both took guitar lessons, and my son was a drummer. And when he was in grade 9, grade 10, I was hoping he wouldn't get into really heavy metal.
Yeah.
And be darned if he didn't start listening to death metal. And it turned out that he joined a death metal band, and he was a singer, growler. So we got really heavy, hardcore death metal band music.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I never missed any of his concerts. He was in 2 bands, Dystopian Wasteland and User Abuse. And being a 55-year-old guy, I was in the audience headbanging like everybody else.
Oh, I love it.
He's really, really good. And so you learn how to appreciate things that your kids are into. So, I mean, you go to a death metal concert, and the guitar playing and the drumming and everything is absolutely to the nth degree. They just don't play scales. They play scales on steroids,
So
but anyway, so I had to phone and tell you, my son's a really good growler. Yeah.
You're the yodeler, he's the growler. But how do you think going to those concerts and, developing your own interest in what he was doing, how do you think that shared interest shaped your relationship?
Well, like when the kids were small, I made sure they listened to everything from Patsy Cline to Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Billy Idol, Queen. So as far as I was concerned, my kids listened to everything. And I had to put it on the line when my son said to me, Dad, I want to turn you on to some music now. So, so now he's, the bands like Sanguisina, Saga Bob, and Slayer, and 200 Stab Wounds, and Death, and 9 Inch Nails. When we go to and listen to all of his music. So
Renee,
I mean,
I love it.
if you're So listen to some death metal.
Okay. Well, who knows what my kids will get into. Renee, thanks so much for calling. I really appreciate that. It was nice to hear your voice again.
You bet.
Renee was the person who was dressed all dapper the other day when we were talking about how to keep textiles out of the landfill. He does a lot of thrifting, and so he was one of our guests on Blue Sky the other day. And if you didn't catch it and you want to hear more from Renee, you can always find our episodes on CBC Listen. Just search for Blue Sky. We also have a lot of them up on our YouTube page. Just search for CBC Saskatchewan. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of Taylor Swift, and most likely you've heard some of her songs like...
'Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break.
And
snakes and stones never broke my bones, so you need to calm down. You're being too loud. And I'm just like, you need to just stop. Like, can you just not step on my gown? You need to calm down.
And of course, who can forget this jam?
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
Well, yeah, she's one of the biggest musicians in the world right now, and she just released a new double album on Friday. And that means that our next two guests spent the better part of their weekend listening to the album. 11-year-old Lily Hymas Fraser and her dad Cam Fraser are self-described Swifties, and they are also in our Regina studio today. Lily and Cam, welcome to Blue Sky.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I guess I just want to ask quickly, what do you think of the new album? Lily?
I really, really enjoy it. It's really very, it's because it has so many songs in it, it's really enjoyable to listen to. I listened to it almost all of Saturday, and I'm still, whenever we're in the car or we're gonna turn it on so that we can, hear the new songs. And
Yeah. Cam, what about you?
Yeah, for sure. So many new pieces to explore and like stories to figure out. Like lots of familiar sounds from other songs that we loved, and then like new lyrics and new bits to get into. Yes, we've had a great time kind of imagining the different story universes that are there.
Yeah. So who liked her first? That's the main question today. Lily, how did you first get interested in Taylor Swift? Was it you or was it your dad that liked her first?
Well, I've always, I knew who Taylor Swift was mostly from when I was little, listening to Shake It Off, because that's one of the most heard of songs. But when I heard my dad used to listen to some of her songs, like Folklore and Evermore, like those albums, and I would be listening. I would be there too, listening, and then I just saw other albums, and I thought maybe we'll listen to this too, and after that we ended up really liking the music and just listening together, and yeah.
Yeah, it's something that you do together. So Cam, tell me your side of the story, because I think technically you did introduce Lily to Taylor Swift, as Lily's kind of saying there. You were listening and she was picking up on it. But what's the story here of how you grew to love Taylor Swift together?
Yeah, for sure. I remember the late 2000s, working at summer camp. There was a talent show every Tuesday night, and Love Story there would be 4 air bands of Love Story every single talent show. And as the camp director, my job was to jam along with every single one of them. So I knew who Taylor Swift was, but it would have been in during the lockdowns. I had a podcast. I was listening to a podcast, and the 2 podcast hosts were talking about what was sustaining them through kind of the really kind of dark and dreary days. And 2 of my favorite podcasters both said it was the album Folklore. So I'm like, I could use some sustaining during the dark and dreary days. So I put the album on, and it just kind of stayed on repeat in our kitchen. And that happened to be I was working in the kitchen. The kids were doing school in the kitchen. We were sitting around the kitchen island all the time. And the kids kind of got into it. And it probably would have been an album I would have listened to and then maybe gone back to. But then our kids started to really enjoy it as well. So I'm like, oh, cool, let's listen to some of her other things. And then watching Lily and her younger sister Isla, who's in Ontario, so couldn't join us today. The 2 of them just, kind of, it lit up their imagination. They really enjoyed the music. They started to really get into the stories that she was telling, and then watching them get really interested in something, and finding it enjoyable to listen to as well, and curiosity piquing. That's kind of that was where we opened up the door.
Yeah, and then how do you think that shared love of the music has impacted your relationship with your daughters?
Yeah, it gives us lots to talk about and things to be excited about together. I had totally forgotten that the new album was coming out on Friday, and Lily had forgotten her lunch at home, and so I took it to school, and she opened the school door, and she's like, "The new album is out." I'm like, "Should I go home and listen to it?" She's like, "You need to wait until I get home." And so she got home and we like listened to it together, and it was great. And then like called her sister who was visiting her grandma in Ontario and like talked about it together. So yeah, and we love to like imagine the different pieces of the story. There's so many like interesting like story universes she's creating within the songs, and we like to like think about the characters that she's creating. We've been less into trying to like imagine how it matches to her life outside of the albums, but just like the songs themselves. So it gives us lots to talk about, lots to engage on, and it offers some interesting conversation starters every once in a while too.
And Cam, you are fully into this because I hear you dressed up and when you went to the Eras movie with Lily and her friends.
Yes, I mean, I was pretty proud of my album. I had a kind of like a mirror ball shirt, a nice suit jacket, some pink pants, and then glitter. I mean, love me some glitter at any moment, and so listening to Taylor Swift always feels like a good excuse to wear some glitter.
Oh my God, I love it. Lily, what did you think about that? Your dad doing that?
It was really, really fun because we had, some other people that came with us to the Eras Tour movie, and it was everyone. We were like the most sparkly family in the theater, and I wasn't as sparkly, but almost everyone was wearing sequins, glitter makeup, and it was really, really, really fun to just everyone. It was great to have something that we could. It was really exciting, and yeah.
Yeah. I know you guys have other things that you're interested in together, and we're going to keep talking to you, but I just want to involve our other guests here because you're sitting next to Albert and Megan. Albert, I don't know, you're listening to these stories. Is that like a dream, possible dream to glitter up and head out and do something like that with your daughter? She's still just so young, but do you think about that and the things that you could potentially do together that would really strengthen your bond? Albert?
Oh, for sure. Like that's father goals right there. I'm all in. Whatever she wants, I'm going to do it. And I just think that as much as I'm trying to not control her, I don't even know why I'm using that word, but to manipulate her, even worse of a word.
I know what you're getting at, though. We're all
to like the
yeah.
things that I like.
Yeah.
I just said you can't discount when you find something that your daughter is into, you're instantly just going, I'm going to buy you 1,000 of these things. And it doesn't matter what it is. So, I mean, I've dressed up as, in dresses and chased her around as animals. So, I mean, it's parents, you do whatever the kid kind of wants. Mm-hmm. And I said it's more interesting just to watch them have choice and have the agency to kind of pick what they want. And you realize, oh, yeah, that there's that whole nature versus nurture stuff. And you start realizing there's just some innate attraction they have to certain things. So
you have an example, Albert, right, of being out bike shopping and you and your partner had an idea and then the child had a different idea?
For sure, yeah. And like my wife likes real minimal, soft colors. And again, we're not the family that's trying to like force any sort of kind of narrative on our child. And we're just like, okay, Yanamiko, you get to pick a bike, and we're trying to maybe pushing her towards this bike that's really nice and minimal and maybe something that's like slightly nicely designed. And then she just picks out the most gaudy bike that has this massive like heart on it like a lot of buttons and tassels, and she's like refuses to even try another bike. And it was in Canadian Tire just trying to lift her and put her onto another bike. She's kicking her legs, not even like almost kicking the bike away. And she just loved this one bike. So we're just like, I guess this is just like choosing a puppy. This is it. You're not going to go. You're not going to stop this meltdown. So she chose this really gaudy bike. You can't even put a bell on it. It's so massive. But she loves it. And again, you're just like, I'm so happy that she loves this. And you just kind of go with the flow. And I'm excited to get to the stage where Lily's at about, being really into something and then potentially bringing me into it because I could totally see myself doing that.
Yeah. Megan, what about you? What stories come to mind for you after hearing from Cam and Lily and then also Albert like that?
Oh, yeah. As I was choosing a hat to cover my bad hair day today, I was reminded that, well, for listeners, I'm wearing a pink hat, and I was always one of the cool girls who's like, I don't like pink. I'm a cool girl. I like black and green, and I just really and truly never ever wore pink. And then the good Lord gave me a child that would only wear pink and only wear dresses and only wear sparkles. And not only did I have to like find things that worked for her, but also gave me an opportunity to like really address my internalized misogyny of like, why don't I like pink? Why do I feel like it's lesser?
Yeah.
And so now it's like, yes, I do like pink. Femininity is great. And it's one of those things that, you know, I try to empower my kids to be like the full version of themselves. And part of that are things that I, you know, really consciously turned down in myself and like tried to be less of. And so now as I'm trying to empower my kids, I'm empowering myself to also be like, you know, I am going to wear this fancy pink outfit today.
It must be fun to watch, for the kids to watch adults like wrestle and contemplate their own thoughts and wrestle with things like that. They're probably just like, just wear
Just
pink,
wear the
Mom.
pink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pink is now my favorite color too, and that is totally because of how much my daughter has embraced pink.
Yeah.
I want to share an email that we got from Darla, who writes, having a 4 and an almost 8-year-old gives me the excuse to do many things I enjoy. Coloring and crafts, reading picture books, building with Lego, playing and exploring outside, and living in the moment. Darla, thanks for writing that. You know, coloring and crafts, maybe I'm not as drawn to all the pop culture stuff. Like, it would definitely be my spouse who's playing the video games, and he's watched way more episodes of Bluey than me. But getting back into art and just creating and feeling that playfulness, I can definitely credit my kids for bringing that out in me. I never would have called myself a creative artist of any kind, and now we're doing all sorts of things that have really tapped into that. So maybe you have an example like that too. 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Now, Lily, I mentioned that you do have other things, other interests that you share with your parents. I think Harry Potter might be an example. Lily, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I really, really, really like Harry Potter. I love the books. I enjoy the movies. And when I was first reading it, we were reading it as a family, probably when I was about like 6 or 7. And we were on a sabbatical trip reading the second book. And we were, I knew, like, my dad and my mom they knew about Harry Potter, and my dad has read the books. But when we started reading the books together, everyone would be like, "Don't read the books without me. I'm going on a walk. Don't read Harry Potter without me." And it was something that we all enjoyed. My sister, my mom, my dad, and reading it together. It helped, like, nurture. We do something together, like all sitting in the bed with the book and just reading it together. And yeah.
Oh, Lily, you're practically got tears in my eyes. They're beautiful, just beautiful. And I think that is what so many families want. Cam, you know, what do you get from going all in like that when it comes to your kids' interests?
Yeah, I mean, first, it's a lot of fun. Like the number of like wand or wand-esque things that are around our house is pretty big. I think we have like almost an entire set of Hogwarts robes in a Tupperware tote. Everyone's, we're always, when we're ever in a thrift store, if there is like a V-neck sweater vest that looks like it could be a Hogwarts uniform, we're picking that thing up. But again, it also like creates a neat shared vocabulary for like important conversations. And so many shared memories, like so many pictures of our whole family dressed up like our favorite characters and things like that.
I love that. Megan, any books that your family has come together to read, or anything else? Maybe it's video games, but any other examples of things that have brought your family together, Megan?
Most recently, we have been playing the SpongeBob SquarePants Xbox game. We've been doing that together quite a bit. But I think my oldest and I are discussing now that we are also going to take on Harry Potter this summer and read it as a family. So looking forward to that.
Albert, what about you? Something that's been on my mind actually is food with my kids. And I think, again, expectations of like, I don't want to be going to McDonald's all the time. Well, my kids love McDonald's, and it's something that like now I'm into it. Like, let's just enjoy a McDonald's burger. Like, why not? Is there anything else that comes to mind for you, Albert?
I would say just, doing a call back to Bluey, bringing that back. I can just imagine, I remember when my wife and I bought this, or my wife bought the Seek and Find book for Bluey. I don't know if you've seen that. And,
yeah.
And it's, of course, Megan's looking at me like, are you kidding me? Taking her earrings off. No, and it's funny because it's, getting into this book, and I think we were looking at it so intently to find this long dog, and it's super hard to find it. It's like more complicated than Where's Waldo to sometimes find this. And we realized like 20 minutes ago, Yanamiko was checked out doing something else, and my wife and I were just obsessively looking at this book and realizing, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this got us into this thing really deep. And I recommend that Seek and Find book. It's incredibly complicated and hard to find these things. But then eventually your daughter is like faster at it than you are, which
that always happens.
Very surprising.
Cam, I don't think I put this question to you yet. Kind of touched on it with Albert and Megan, but that idea that you kind of hope to influence your kids a bit when it comes to their interests. And I'm just wondering what you've learned over the years, because your kids are a little bit older. And so were you doing that? Like, oh, I like this, maybe they will too? Or how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before that, like, we listen to a lot of music in our kitchen. Like, we've got kind of like an open concept, like our kitchen sort of bleeds into the living room. And so we do spend a lot of time on the same floor at this point. Our kids don't tend to go to their rooms for solo time, although they're welcome to if they need some space. So that's kind of nice. And so we've always generally played music that we're into on our kind of devices that are playing in the space that we're sharing, and so but always attentive to see like what's piquing their interest, and we've we'll sort of weight playlists heavily in one area or another. But also recognize if kids aren't digging something, we've never tried to force things on them, and so finding the few things that like everyone really connects with, has been really really nice. And also like if you get a good catchy song and play it about 20 times around kids when they're doing something else, they'll start singing it.
They will, yeah.
And so. It works both ways.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Albert, we're wrapping up here, but I want to give each of you a chance just to say a few final things. Anything that you're hoping Yanamiko will get into, and just how are you going to continue to navigate the things that you're interested in versus the things she's interested in, and what you might find as common interests?
Well, I mean, everything that I'm into. I have a lot of interests, and I'm trying to just everything. I'm just hoping something sticks. Like when she was in her Jolly Jumper, I was just like throwing a soccer ball at her, seeing if she would kick it, and she kicked it, unconsciously, and I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. She's going to be the next Mia Hamm. But sports, obviously trying to get her into sports, get her into snowboarding. I'm really excited to get her into snowboarding and just being able to do that. I'm just excited about the whole process. From 3 on is like really so much growth, especially in the physical and general interest. And so I'm really just wanting to take it all in. But do I want her to be into Guns N' Roses and Led Zeppelin and, Hulk Hogan? For sure. But at the same time, I'm totally open to just wherever she goes, I'll just follow. But at the same time, I'll just sprinkle in some of the things I did when I was young to see if it sticks.
Megan, what about you?
I would love to see my kids, just follow their hearts. And if their hearts lead them to things that I also like and maybe already have at home, and so we don't have to go out and buy a whole new set of things, that would be great. But like Albert said, I'm along for the ride. I'm just excited to see where they go. Although my oldest now likes Modest Mouse, and I don't love Modest Mouse.
Oh,
so I'm like,
you don't like?
I'm about to take my earrings off.
Well, we can talk about this after. It was a not great live experience. Anyway, this is a conversation for another time. But, you win some, you lose some. And, I'm just holding out for those wins.
Oh, it's been so great talking to all of you. Lily, you were delightful. Thank you so much for being one of our guests today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Cam, thanks for coming in too.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I'm
Also-
so glad to be here.
Yeah, and Albert and Megan, thanks for being here.
Always.
Anytime.
So that was Albert Jamie, a Saskatoon dad, Regina mom Megan Trenholm, and then daughter, dad duo Lily Hymas Fraser and Cam Fraser. We're going to end on some Taylor Swift, but I want to quickly tell you what's coming up on the show tomorrow. The province is already on high alert, bracing for what could be a dangerous fire season. And so on the next Blue Sky, we'll be speaking to people on the front lines of fire prevention in this province. I'm Leisha Gravinsky. Thanks for being with us here on Blue Sky on CBC Radio 1, 94.1 FM in Saskatoon, 102.5 FM in Regina, 540 AM across the province. Here's Taylor Swift with the title track from the Tortured Poets Department.
Straight from the Tortured Poets Department. I think some things I never say, like who uses typewriters anyway, but you're in self-sabotage mode, throwing spikes down on the road. But I've seen this episode and still love the show. Who else decodes you? And who's gonna